Leach, founder of the Freelance Conference, and I am here today with Michelle Keeper of Pressable. If you haven't heard of Pressable, it is WordPress, managed WordPress hosting. I use myself. I absolutely love it. I love the platform, but I have to tell you, Michelle, I love your tech support.
Yes. Bradley is our hero. We have all kinds of we actually even have a word of Bradleyism.
Oh yeah.
For did we take it to that level of a Bradleyism where it's just above and beyond? I mean, it's exciting. It's one of my favorite parts about Pressable, honestly. I did consulting before I came in-house with Pressable, and one of my personal kind of soapbox spaces is customer support and how well of an experience you're actually providing to your customer versus expecting them to just kind of self-serve their own support or things being, completely replaced with automation. And Pressable just takes it above and beyond. And it's really exciting to be a part of a team that cares that much about support.
It is. I mean, knowledge bases are great. I get them, but half of the time the problem is it isn't that, well, for me, it isn't so much that I don't know the steps. It's that I don't know where the step what is to start. I know that I got to do A, B, and C, but I don't know where that step was, and so on and so forth. So anyway, that it's so wonderful to be able to just send a quick email or get on your little chat and say, and there's been 2 or 3 times that I just flat out screwed the site up. I mean, it was bad, at least from it looked bad. And I'll reach out and like, I did it. I'm sorry. I did it, but I don't know what I did. Can you help me with this? Sure. And you just sit there, and every time, I mean, I can't guarantee it's always going to be this way, but all 3 times it's been, okay, you're up. What? Do I want to know what I did? And one time it was like, it wasn't my fault. It looked like it was my fault, but it wasn't.
Yeah.
It just happened to be an upgrade that hit right at the same time I was there. And
well, and that's the good thing about managed hosting also is that we just have a bigger like bird's eye view of what's happening within your site because we can see what's happening in the server. And to your point, if it's a plugin that needs to be updated or just some other obscure thing happening, like we just see it at such a higher level and we can really dig in and find it.
And you guys have so many people on there. So like I use Divi for my theme manager or my builder. And what I didn't know is one of the things was I went ahead and did the upgrade to my Divi because you're supposed to do the upgrade to your Divi when it comes up, right? And what I didn't know is that they were working on it, but there just happened to be a glitch with that version of Divi and a plugin that I had. And you guys get to see enough of that comes through that they're like going, oh, you have this and this. You have to, I just had to turn off this one and you have to turn Divi back on and then turn this one back on and then they work. But it could have taken me hours.
Yes. And it's, well, the process of elimination alone can figuring out which one of the plugins is causing the friction can take a long time. And it takes our support guys, they still kind of have to go through a lot of the same processes of trial and process of elimination, but that's what they do all of the time. So they're just so much more proficient at moving through those types of troubleshooting. And we work really closely, especially if it's a plugin that a lot of our customers use, then we know those developers and we have relationships. And so sometimes we'll get a heads up, hey, this is about to update, but this plugin isn't compatible yet, or this theme isn't compatible yet. And so we don't always have that kind of insight, but it is nice when we do have it. We're always looking for that extra step to take. So yeah,
well, you guys kick butt at it.
So Bradley will be elated to hear he has more fans.
Awesome. Yeah, I am a Bradley fan and a Mike fan. And there's a couple of other people I'm sure I've worked with, but not as much to remember their names.
Oh, yeah, it's great. I mean, Roger's fantastic. He's been in WordPress for a really long time. And he's spoken at WordCamps and he's worked, outside of Pressable. He's definitely had his fair share of hosting experience. But we just kind of have this whole robust a representation of skill sets. Some people are really strong in PHP. Other people are really strong with like plugin and bug fixes. And other people are really strong in just helping pull out what the actual problem is from a customer. Because sometimes they don't know. They're just like, something's not working and I don't know what I did or what I didn't do. A lot of our clients have collaborator access, especially agencies. They'll
Right.
have 500 sites on a single plan, and all the different collaborators from all the different client relationships they have, and we just see everything that's happening. So it's easier for us to just kind of pinpoint and say, here.
It's like I said, I could go on and on and on, but we would spend all of our time doing that. So now this will be our second year having the happiness bar at the freelance conference. And last year, I have to admit, I didn't 100% get it. I mean, I sort of got it. It's like going, yeah, you're happier because your WordPress site works. But this year, having had, because I just got on the Pressable platform maybe 2 months before the conference. And so this year I've been out for an entire year. And now I get when your WordPress site works, when you have the people and the connections to go to and work through those roadblocks, those challenges, I get it. But tell us from your words, tell us about what the happiness bar really is and the people that you bring in and why it is just nothing short of amazing.
Yeah, absolutely. So the happiness bar is that, like, the title of happiness bar is actually a lift from WordCamp events, because it's within Automatic, the engineers, the tech support engineers that they hire are called happiness engineers. And so really that comes from our relationship with Automatic, at least the language behind it, right? Conceptually, it's you nailed it right on the head. Just when things are working well and you have access to the support you need, it just feels good. Matt Mullenweg, his relationship with Pressable, his number one desire is just that people have an opportunity to love their WordPress experience and to just make their WordPress experience be the best it can be. And that's our first, line of business. And so we get to really take that to heart. And again, we curate the right team members that bring all the different types of skill sets into it. So we have a really robust offering for support. Even if you might think that you're having a chat support conversation with one person, but on our end, that person is in the Slack channel with all the rest of the support team troubleshooting. So we're constantly crowdsourcing, pulling expertise to make sure that every customer really gets the best perspective of that. So happiness bars WordCamp is like the local WordPress meetup. They have their little WordPress conferences, and some of them are, more regional and smaller. Some of them are much larger. In fact, WordCamp US is coming up in just a couple of weeks in St. Louis, and that's a huge event. But there's a happiness bar there, and that's just where you go to get your troubleshooting for anything WordPress. And so that's really where the concept evolved. For this happiness bar, it's really, happiness bars at WordCamps, it's just volunteers. Whoever shows up and volunteers to work in it is fine. Okay. But for FREECON, we did something a little different, and we were very, very specific with how we curated who was going to come and be in the happiness bar based on knowing who comes to FREECON. We know these are freelancers, the Jack and Janes of all trades, and trying to do a whole lot of different things. So we also know there's lots of different types of freelancers and lots of different businesses and industries that they're coming in. So we wanted to make sure we had a fair sampling. So we have a couple of people from Pressable, so they'll be able to speak to the systems and the server side, talking about performance and your speed, how your site is actually operating and running, the security of it, and things like that. We'll have a couple of people from WordPress.com. And so they'll be able to speak more to the actual design and development of a WordPress site. Awesome. Gutenberg rolled out in this last year, and that was a big change for a lot of people.
Man, that was big.
Yeah, and the adoption rate's been all over the board because they had the classic editor plugin. So there was this kind of backdoor way to avoid Gutenberg. But we're seeing the adoption rate is just growing more and more. Once people actually get over the shock of Gutenberg being so drastically different, people are getting on board with it. And also in true WordPress open source fashion, there's now dozens of new solutions and bolt-ons and plugins and things that aid with the use of Gutenberg. And of course, Gutenberg's not the only thing that people, want to know about .com and how to actually build with WordPress. But then we'll also have someone here from WooCommerce. And so that's another, yeah. So we're really excited to have someone with us from WooCommerce as well, just to, again, there's specialized needs when you're selling online, and whether it's how your site is performing or how it's built, but what systems you're integrating in, how you manage your payments, how you manage, any of that piece of it. We'll have someone there to really zero in on those types of questions.
Because that's almost a first. At least in this area, I've not seen any events that have WooCommerce people there to connect with that. How many? It's only been a few years since they bought WooCommerce out, and
I'm not exactly sure
like
on the love story and timelines of all of that integration with WooCommerce. To me, I feel like it's always just been part of it because of my introduction into WordPress and Pressable and everything. But yeah, I mean, BigCommerce and Shopify, they definitely have the bigger, more known names. But having something like WooCommerce, where it's just a simple publishing, plugin that you can build into your site, and it's very robust. It's connected to every, it seems like everybody's API has an option to connect to the WooCommerce. So it's just so versatile, and you don't have to be a developer to operate it. You don't have to have somebody that's just completely dedicated to managing your store within your website environment. I mean, depending on how your size and scale. But again, we're talking to freelancers here who are trying to do a whole lot of things for themselves. They don't always have the option to outsource. They don't always have the option to hire on an agency. And so they've got to have a really, well-rounded understanding of how these websites need to operate, regardless of if they're trying to scale their business where they are hiring their own people and scaling that way, or if they're just trying to get it to a point where they can become an asset to be acquired. You still really have to make sure that you have all your ducks in a row before you're going to be able to move out in that direction. So,
and we have a lot of website designers that come to Freelance Conference. And as a website designer, we get a lot of smaller businesses that are like, I just need a shopping cart. And I can't afford, like you said, some of the really large, and I don't need that much power. WooCommerce is so perfect, and it has so many, like you said, bolt-ons or add-ons that you can do to help take care of events and event registrations or downloads, and it just goes on and on. Every time I go out to do research on something like that, WooCommerce or some bolt-on to WooCommerce, it is out there. So I just love how big it's. Yeah.
Especially designer, there's within the website design space, there's so many different flavors of what you can be doing as a freelancer. You can actually be building websites, or you could be consulting for strategy, or you could be creating courses and selling them online. Like, there's so many different ways to look at it. And that's another thing that I really like about FREECON is, even for myself years ago, when I just started my own business, you come into it and you think you have an idea of what type of business you're going to offer and what you can do using your skill set. But the more you network and the more you meet with people, the more opportunities you realize that your skills can really be, niche programmed into very specific places where you can really grow and find a lot of joy in what you're doing. And I think it's great to have FREECON as a space to be able to have those conversations.
Well, we are honored to have you guys, and all the work that you put into this has been amazing.
I'm really excited about it too. We learned a lot. So as you mentioned, we did it last year, and it was kind of like, oh, what is this? How does it work? So we sent some people, and we had a happiness bar. Yeah, and we had a happiness bar, and we're just like, okay. And this year we're just so much more prepared for it. So, for example, we have our kind of quick chats at the top of the hour, like 11 and 12, and then we're skipping lunch because we believe in the work-life balance, and you shouldn't work during your lunch. And then having a couple more sessions in the afternoon. And that's just what we learned last year and it's kind of like what you were even saying earlier, when you go to access support, sometimes you just don't know what you don't know.
Yeah.
And you might think like, well, everything's fine. Like, I don't have an issue. And you don't realize that you might not have a problem, but you do have a gap in missed opportunities to be doing more, to be doing something else that you haven't thought of yet. And so we'll have a couple, like the first couple of sessions are a little bit more high level about WordPress and what you can and can't do with WordPress, the ease of publishing and moving into that space. Then we'll talk about plugins, and that's I feel like one of the biggest challenges against why you shouldn't use WordPress is that it's just a blog, or it's so limited, and it's just not true. And having plugins is a big piece of why that isn't true. You can customize any digital experience you want if you get the right plugins.
Yeah.
But there can be too much of a good thing. And
There
we
can.
have customers they'll ping us and we're like, why is my site slow? And it's like, oh, it's because you have 200 plugins operating right now.
200 plugins.
And so, yeah, so we're going to address some of those things and talk about, how to research plugins and how to find out if one plugin is really compatible with another. And again, these are really, really short chats. So we're not trying to take, they're not like whole like presentations. We just want to get the ball rolling, get a conversation started. So when you come into the Happiness Bar this year, you don't just have to come in with a question or, hey, can you help me figure out how to troubleshoot this specific problem I've already identified? You can just pop into the Happiness Bar to, hear the conversation that's taking place, maybe peer over someone else's shoulder and see what they're learning about. And we're really wanting it to be more of that interactive experience. And then in the afternoon, we'll drill into more specific things, talking about two-factor security, and also, some common causes to slow websites. And here's a hint, plugins won't be on the list because we're going to already talk about that. So the idea is that you're going to actually learn some really valuable insight to your technology by the end of the day, whether you're popping in or you get to hang out with us for a little while.
Cool. Well, is there anything else you want to share with everybody before we jump off?
No, nothing that I can think of right now. Thank you so much for having me on. This has been a pleasant chat. I'm really excited to get to be back at FREECON again this year and continue to grow with the freelancers in the marketplace and see what they can do.
Yeah, I'm so excited to have you guys there. So if you have not gotten your ticket yet for the freelance conference at FREECON 19, it starts Sunday and it's Monday. So you're less than a week away, but you can still get tickets. There are a few out there. Last time I looked, freelanceconference.com/FREECON19 shows you the agenda, everything that's going on. The sessions, even I would probably call them micro sessions that you talked about. There's 4 of them within the Happiness Bar. Those are all lined out on the Tuesday, and it's all included in your ticket. So we hope to see you there starts on Sunday afternoon, about 5:30 at Topgolf, and it goes through Tuesday. I was going to say the next Sunday. It does not go that long, till Tuesday.
Very cool.
Again,
it's such a great event. You've done a great job curating it.
Thanks.
Again, freelancers in the area, even if you don't feel like there's something you need to learn about, the value of the networking, the value of the partnership exploration that can go on at an event like this is just really great. So thank you so much for putting it on.
Well, I can't wait to sit there and go through my site with you guys as well. Hands on.
Yay.
All right. Thanks, everybody.
All right.